Dun-dun-dun.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the DNVR Nuggets podcast, the DNBA show. Let's go!
Let's go, dude. Finally, the
We are
two-man
presented
game.
by DraftKings Sportsbook. Make sure to use code DNVR when you sign up and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Harrison Wind, joined by Eric. You know him as D-Line Co. And I got to say, Eric, I love super producer Kale. He's great for the company. He's great for our show. I wouldn't rather have anybody else produce our show.
Sure.
But I mean, that wasn't that hard. The intro slide plus the pre-show bumper was pretty flawless, wouldn't you say?
Whew, I gotta say, Kale, I know you're not watching. Pack your shit. I mean, we know you're not watching.
No, I'm just kidding. We love you, Kale. We could not do it without you. We got a fun show today. We're going to continue our season in review series. We're going to talk about Aaron Gordon, what we thought of him this season, what we've learned about him through 100 games, some of his best moments, where he grew as a player, where he might have regressed as a player. So we're going to get into all of that. We also might have a special guest joining us, maybe.
What?
I'm scared to go to him because his technical abilities have been kind of questioned here in the ramp up to the show. But Superstar Dev, is that you?
I am here. I am
Oh
ready.
my
I am ready to
God.
talk. Let's
God,
do this.
dude.
Look at
Oh
you
my
guys. You guys
God.
look
Wow.
good. You guys look like you guys miss me.
Well, we haven't seen you since the season ended, man. How is your off season treating you?
I went into a hiatus. I just listened to you guys. I don't even put the video on. I listen to you guys in the car, and I'm like, you know what? They're a lot better like this when you listen to you guys in the
It's
car.
a lot better to just not watch us and just listen to us.
You guys have radio faces. That's what I've learned. Like you guys, they're not attractive, but do sound really, really good. Not you, Harrison. You're attractive, of course.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
I felt like that was directly pointed at me. Listen, I'm fine with it. I don't even have a radio voice. Like, what do I have?
Just a general voice.
Just a
Regular
general
voice.
human voice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Glad you're here, Dev. We ready to give some takes on Aaron Gordon's season?
Let's do it. Let's talk Aaron Gordon, the man.
Let's do it. So Aaron Gordon, he's played more than 100 games with the Nuggets now, one full season in Denver, and then he obviously was here for half a season last year in the playoffs. I'll throw it to you, D-Line, first. What's kind of maybe your biggest takeaway, or what have you learned about Aaron Gordon? What's one thing you've learned about him through his first 100 games? First is through 1.5 seasons in Denver.
Well, I mean, the first thing is that he's not even close to the player that I thought he was from afar in Orlando. I really thought he was just like I don't know what I thought he was. He's just like he's more of a gritty player than I realized. And like when he's at his best is when he is being like really physical. I just thought about him as sort of like a highlight dunk guy, maybe like kind of a glamorous kind of player, like scoring a lot of points, leading the team. And he's not that at all, man. He's like as close to a blue collar, like NBA player as the Nuggets have outside of probably Jermichael Green. And I also learned that like he's not horribly consistent. He's like not like he can be super dominant, but he can get bumped out of that like pretty easy. And then you can go on long stretches with Aaron Gordon where he seems like hapless, where he like settles for jump shots and 3-pointers, which always seem like folly for him. But then he's like shown us that he can always sort of like find his way back. But he seems like he is his game, like when it's firing at all cylinders, is a physical game, and he gets injured in minor ways a lot that derail that, is what I've learned.
Keaton says he ran into Aaron Gordon at Shake Shack in Rhino. So chill. Not surprising at all. Like, that's pretty normal.
Chillest dude ever.
Shook my wife's hand. Good detail there. Did he shake your hand as well, or just your wife's?
I know, because if so, that's like not that cool, frankly.
No, D-Line, I agree with your points there. The first one you made is actually one that I had on my list too. Like, I feel like Aaron Gordon's tough. He's a fighter, man. He doesn't mind confrontation. I mean, there were a couple this season when he got into Russell Westbrook's face. Keenan says, "Just my wife's." Okay, good to know.
Boy, he wasn't being polite. He was hitting on your wife. Just FYI.
Yeah, but Aaron Gordon, man, he can he's not afraid to get into it. Like, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. I feel like he likes confrontation. The Draymond Green dust up, the Russell Westbrook dust up during the season. And I'm with you. Like, I didn't know really anything about the type of person Aaron Gordon was when he was in Orlando. I mean, we all just knew him as the dunk contest guy. But I feel like he is a tough player who, he's not going to back down. I feel like the Warrior series was a great illustration of that. He kind of got sunned through those first couple of games by Draymond Green, but I think in the end showed that he can definitely fight through adversity. What about you, Dev? What's something you learned about Aaron Gordon through his time in
I
Denver?
think that I think Eric makes a really good point as far as he's a lot different than what I expected coming into the season. I believe that, especially coming from Orlando, this was a guy that was pretty much their best player and a player that they made things happen around. He was the first option most nights. And I didn't even know he was a really good defender going into
Yeah.
I didn't know that that's what he had to do because he was on a team that was not a contender. They really didn't have much to play for. So when you're young and in those type of situations, you just try to score. You just try to gun, and everything is centered around you. But to go to see that he's a player that's willing to do whatever the team asks him to do and steps up to the occasion, I think that's the biggest thing. When he first got into Denver, he had to adapt. He went from being a guy that was the number one option to now being the third, fourth, option, pretty much fourth option actually. And that's when he got to focus on the defense. He got to just have an assignment every single night. And I was like, maybe he's not going to adapt in that type of way, or that's not what he's going to accept. And he did accept his role, and they won with him. So he already took away the idea that he wasn't a winner because he clearly won in that way, and he was willing to do what was asked of him. Then you go into this year and guys get hurt. He never makes an excuse at all. He didn't say anything about being injured. He didn't say anything about having to have, guard assignments as well as big men that he's having to. He's playing multiple positions. He's defending multiple positions. And not one time was there an excuse made. He just stepped up and did what was asked of him. He had to score and become that second option, which he was fine with. He had to still defend, even though that there were some ups and downs, I'm sure that we're going to talk about here shortly. But he's a player that I feel like Denver, they needed a change from Grant, who wanted to be a star that was not in a situation too, and they found a perfect situation that's just kind of similar to Jeremy Grant, but also a lot more low maintenance as well as more productive.
No, I agree. That was another note I had. He's willing to adjust his game. And he's a completely different player now, and we'll get into this when we go over his stats and stuff and where his shots are coming from. But he's a totally different player now than he was in Orlando, and you got to give him a lot of credit for that because he came here, saw what the Nuggets needed him to do. They needed him to be their best defender, and I feel like he's had a really good run on defense here over the last 1.5 years, and at times this year as well. And he's just kind of been a complementary offensive piece. He's not a play starter, which he was in Orlando a lot of times. He's a play finisher. So I give a lot of credit to Aaron Gordon for adjusting his game. And at the age he is, you don't really see a ton of guys who are still in their prime. Aaron Gordon's still in his prime, but kind of adjusting his game to go from more of a star role to a secondary role.
That's really well put. You don't ever see that. You see role players that are Jeremy Grant is the perfect example. He was at a place where he wanted more, so he went and made offensive showcase made offense a major part of what his game is all about. And Aaron Gordon had that in Orlando, and he happily has accepted, this role of just being a team player. I also love that he just the quote, that we keep going back to at the end of the season, that he just really wants to improve his basketball IQ. The idea that he is just being introduced to basketball on such a different level. He's played it his whole life.
Yeah.
And now, playing alongside Jokic, he's oh my God, what am I doing? What is this? I don't even know what this is.
And And I know we're talking about Aaron Gordon, but also like that just goes to the point of Jokic makes players around him a lot better. Like for a guy to excel in this league and to be a really good, an important piece, and for him to go into a situation with a relatively new superstar, and says that he still has to learn the game of basketball. He still has to get better on things that just come natural to people. Like that just goes to show how complex of a player Jokic is, as well as like how he's pushing people to want to be better himself. It wasn't like Jokic ever called out Aaron Gordon on not knowing how to play with him. This is a guy that's just like, hey, I'm going to adapt. I want to learn how to play alongside him. We play really well. And we have that connection on the court, but I want to get better with it, and I wanted to adapt in different ways. And another great piece is like he didn't even bring up Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Like he stayed on Jokic, and that might give us like a look behind the curtain, as well as saying, hey, like this is who our best player is. This is who we're going to go around. Now we have to adapt to him, and it seems like Aaron Gordon was the first one to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He's playing a totally different like style of basketball now than he played in Orlando. It's just like totally different worlds that he went from Orlando to Denver. And I think he's kind of flourishing. Let's go over some of his numbers from this season. 15 points per game he averaged. That's his highest since 2018-2019. 4.2 rebounds, 2.5 assists per game. Check out these numbers, though. Aaron Gordon shot 52% from the field this season. It's not a career high, but it's his highest since he shot 47% in 2016. Like 2016 was a while ago. 57.3 effective field goal percentage for Gordon this season. That was a career high. Previous high was 52%, which was last year. So Aaron Gordon had the most efficient season of his career this year. And that's interesting because he was like the number 2 or number 3 option for the Nuggets a lot on the offensive end of the floor. He had to shoot a lot of threes. He had to create his offense at times with no Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. So I think just the fact that he had such an efficient season being an option where he was kind of miscast a little, in my opinion, that was a little impressive. The 3-point shooting, not great from him. He shot 33%. His career average is 32%. We'll talk in a little bit how most of his shots came from the corners, though, from 3, which I think is encouraging. And here's the most interesting stat I found from his season. Aaron Gordon had 130 dunks this year. His previous career high was 104 in 2018-2019. He set a career high in dunks this season. His last 2 years, check this out, his last 2 years, 88 dunks in 62 games in 2020, 52 dunks in 50 games last year. So he's just dunking way more this season. What do you think about that, Delon?
I'm actually surprised by that. Like, to me, it seems like we don't see him dunk enough. I'm amazed. I mean, this is just like what you expect Aaron Gordon to be versus what he actually is. Because like the dunks are like those are what I think of most when I think of his, like when he's being most impactful. He's like dunking with anger and like bringing, like rattling rims and shit and like getting people like, I mean, like he is a player that can like get the crowd involved and the rest of the team involved and like can actually be like very strategic about just his placement. A lot, being able to receive passes from Jokic and just yam them on fools. Like I always just thought he was just straight up dunker. It's wild to me that this is the most he's done. I mean, does that surprise you?
It's surprising until you kind of think about what his role was. I mean, how many dunks did he get just playing off a yoke? Like
totally.
Probably at least half of those. Yeah, he got some in transition. He got some one-on-one. But I mean, the dunks I remember from him, were coming off like that 5-4 pick and roll or him in the dunker spot, getting a bounce pass from Jokic in the paint. So I think it's a product of the Nuggets system and who he's playing with, but also Aaron Gordon, he stayed pretty healthy this year. 75 games. Last year, he only played in 50 games total. I think 25 of those came with Denver. So he was able to stay healthy. That's why his numbers are also up. But it was kind of, just surprising to see on paper, 130 dunks. Like, he blew his previous career high of 104, like, out of the water. What do you think about that, Dev?
Yeah, I think that it kind of does make sense. I bet you, like, if you look at his PER, like, it looks a lot different, but it just shows his ability to adapt. I'm sure in Orlando, he was doing a lot of having the ball in his hands and having to
Yeah.
create for himself and also coming off of screens. And you just spoke about it, Harrison. He's now in the dunker spot where he's like a lot more natural. So he's able to just go up and use his athletic abilities instead of having to break a defender down and then try to go dunk on him or through him. He's also not seeing double teams in the same ways that he was. Maybe they're shading him, but it's not like where he's the focus. So like that does make sense. And also the health. I mean, he was able to play a lot more. He was also able to help Denver in a lot of different ways. They have point guards who can, throw the ball up and he goes and gets it. He did not really have that in Orlando. He was the guy that created for them. Their second best player was their center. So, of course, like,
Yeah.
he's not a passing center the same way that Jokic is, and putting him in those spots. But I mean, Aaron Gordon, like, having those type of stats, like, it just shows like how efficient he was. It shows how open the offense was, and also how he had to switch his role and be able to be productive in it. Those numbers are great, especially seeing that he went through some lows shooting the basketball. There was like times that he just wasn't. He also wasn't as aggressive until he started to get called out a lot more. So like I'm sure that like increase those numbers and things like that. But we're just seeing like a lot of different ways that he's able to score and open up the offense through him. So it's great that there's not like just numbers to say he's only a corner shooter. He's only a slasher. Like he showed like a big repertoire.
If you go back and look at the point guards Aaron Gordon played with in Orlando, it's like the ugliest list you could ever put together.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
Jameer Nelson, DJ Augustine.
I don't even know if he crossed over with Jameer Nelson. I think the best point guard he might have played with was like Elfrid Payton or DJ Augustine.
I like DJ Augustine gets dragged on this show from time to time. I'm a big fan of DJ Augustine.
Yeah, but he's not setting Aaron Gordon up with a ton of alley-oops.
No, definitely not. No. He's not the greatest passing player of this generation. You're right. That's
He's definitely in a much better situations to catch lobs here in Denver. D-Line, what do you think of Aaron Gordon as a three-point shooter? Because he shot about his career average from three this season, but I don't know. I kind of felt more confident in his three-point shot than I guess the numbers would suggest. Like a little more confident, not much, but like a little.
What the word is streaky.
Yeah,
he's not a good three-point shooter. He's just not like, but he can get on a roll. His season was beginning of the year. He was awesome in all aspects. Middle of the year, he was terrible in all aspects, and I think he was hurt. And then he like started to get good again going into the playoffs, and then like bad for the first two games, and then showed back up and like reminded us like why, we were so excited when we got him. So I mean, he was awful in the middle of the season. There's just times he's just not a guy you want to be relying on to shoot the three-pointer. He has like some ability, but like what it's like you want. I mean, he is a player that is shooting threes because Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. aren't there to take them instead.
Also because defense is just, like to your point, and because of that, the defense is just leaving him wide open. Like totally. He's absolutely wide open. He just kind of has to take him. Aaron Gordon's November, 14.5 points per game, 6 rebounds, 2.5 assists. He shot 40% from three.
Yeah, he came out on fire, man.
Yeah. What do you think of Aaron Gordon?
But what did he end with? What was his 3-point percentage for the season as a whole?
He ended shooting 33%, which is just about his season average. Yeah,
that sounds right.
Yeah. I think that if it was in a different situation, so it's hard to even put like a guy. I was going to say like maybe Jeff Green and things like that. It works in different ways. The only reason that it made it very difficult is when Aaron Gordon is shooting the three ball, that means that he's giving the defense a pass, because him going downhill and attacking is like where the defense is, on their heels the most. And also it's not what they want him to do. If you could like change the fact that he's not just shooting threes the entire time, now he's applying pressure on the defense and making you scramble a lot more. So I think that's where it becomes difficult with Aaron Gordon. I am excited that he was able to shoot the ball without actually feeling pressure. So it wasn't like, he doesn't have the green light, but also if guys know that he's just going to shoot, just dunk every single time, they're going to pack the paint. It makes it a lot more difficult for Jokic to have any room to operate. So him having the ability to, I think it actually was like a weapon for Denver. Him having the ability to shoot the three ball went well for them, but also he can mix it up now. So now defenses have to guess, like, okay, we can't leave him out there on the island every single time, but also if we don't, close out on him, he can knock it down, but he also can dunk as well. So I think that while the numbers suggest that it was not like so well, I think that it helped in regards of the defense is still guessing on Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
They definitely are guessing. All right, let's hit a break real quick. We're going to talk about Aaron Gordon's defense and then what we thought his best game was, his best moment of the season. I'm sure you guys have a long list prepared of those. But I guess I'm doing the breaks as well on today's show.
Yeah, man, you're you're a 5-tool player today.
TV. I am. Evoca TV. If you haven't been able to watch Nuggets and Avs games this season, you got to check out Evoca TV. They've got Altitude Sports. They've got other national channels as well, now available in Denver and Colorado Springs. With baseball season underway, you can watch the Rockies too on AT&T Sportsnet Rocky Mountain. How you get set up with Evoca TV, go to evoca.tv/DNVR. Use promo code DNVR. You're going to get $10 off your first 3 months. That's only $15 per month for the first 3 months. Plus, you get a receiver as well. No contracts, no hidden fees. So get set up with these guys over the summer. You'll be set, ready to go for Nugget season in October. Evoca.tv/DNVR. Use promo code DNVR. You're going to get $10 off your first 3 months.
Oh, baby.
Also at DraftKings Sportsbook, NBA playoff action is nonstop. And DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, they're ready to hook you up. This week, new customers can bet just $5 on any team to win. Get $150 in free bets if they do. If you're looking to turn a small bet into a big payday during the playoffs, check out DraftKings same-game parlays. You can do that with any NBA game, player props, team props, whatever prop you want. DraftKings Sportsbook has it. So make sure to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR. Bet $5 on any NBA team to win their game. Get $150 in free bets if they do. That's promo code DNVR only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. All right. Yes, Razorburn. Just, carrying the squad like usual.
Ridiculous.
Putting on my number 15 today.
You're carrying
Doing
the
it
squad.
all.
No, but you're carrying the squad like Luka is carrying the Mavs. Like, we're not winning.
Did you watch that game last night?
That game was terrible. I hate how Dallas plays basketball. Like,
Is Luka Doncic not just James Harden reincarnated?
He is. He's the biggest. He is a ball black hole. Like, I made a couple of comments. Like, dude, if I was playing offense with Luka Doncic, you're like,
Yeah.
all right, just tell me when he's done. Like, shoot it. Like, whatever. Like, just let me know when it's over, man.
Guys look extremely unhappy off the ball. You don't know when it's coming to you. It just really, when he gets it, it's like a lot of pick and rolls. He's like directing you where to go and things like that. So Razorburn, yeah, Harrison could be Luka in that situation. He's just telling us what to do, and we just.
But then you guys hate me. We hate
then
you,
you're
shooting me dirty
and
looks
it's a
all
30-point loss in the end. Like, that's.
But yeah, the Dallas game was so predictable because Luka dominates the first half, then he just gets tired, and the Suns put him in pick and roll every single play in the fourth quarter. Boom! Like, it's such an easy formula now.
The absolute torture chamber. That was so bad. It was like what, dude? I mean, it just like the house of cards that Dallas is playing with. Just, I mean, it was so obvious. Like, they were ahead. That's the script of that game. If you weren't watching it, you're like, okay, they're going to be ahead. They're going to slowly lose the lead, and then the wheels are going to fall off. Like, I thought they were going to lose by 7, not like 24, whatever they ended up losing by.
Yeah,
like,
the wheels. That was the definition of the wheels coming off. Definition.
That was bad.
All right, Let's talk about Aaron Gordon's defense here. We're back here on the DNVR Nuggets podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Of course, use code DNVR when you sign up and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. If I had to write like a one sentence thesis or topic sentence on, that's for you, Dev. That's for you. If I had to write a one topic sentence on Aaron Gordon's defense, I said all NBA at the beginning of the season, but regressed as the season went on and had some moments in the playoffs. Like, doesn't that kind of sum up his season?
Absolutely. And then just really thinking about him as a defender this year. I think that it was like actually like a positive like learning lesson for Denver, because I felt like that they felt like they had a guy that can guard anyone. And I think as the season progressed, and especially in the playoffs, they seen he is a big guy. He's not supposed to be trying to get through all of these screens. His success is like guarding players like Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, like those type of players that are big and aggressive and strong. And he got put in a situation where it's lots of pick and rolls. It's like trying to guard like players like Ja Morant and Steph Curry, who like it's just a difficult for any guard. But also, your big man should not be trying to get through screens and have to chase the entire time. So I think that that's where Denver learned, like, hey, we have to have somebody else. And you've seen Austin Rivers gets a lot more opportunity to guard those type of guards. And I think that's going to be like something that they try to fill in the offseason. But as far as like Aaron Gordon himself, I feel like when he's locked in on something, that's what he wants to accomplish. I feel like earlier when he first got to Denver, the ability to be able to just focus on defense, he made them so much better, and they got a lot better in that. Then he had to become the second option offensively, and that's what his focus was. So whatever he actually has to focus on is the biggest point, and I feel like that's where it was for him. So good season, like as far as defense, and he brings that into him. And I think that Denver is very confident that they have a defender, but also a learning season where it's like, hey, we can't have him do this every single night. Also, let's give him some like time off, days off. Another guy that can be with him.
Dude, I can't believe we didn't wish this to you.
I know.
Do you feel bad? I feel bad, dude. Dev, from the bottom of my heart, Feliz Cinco de Mayo from both of us, from all of us.
See, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, really, I'm gonna have a Corona after work, you know.
Wow, it must be a slow day. Or it must be a busy day.
Slow day. No, it's Cinco de Mayo. So, like, I'm glad that you guys are finally showing up. Medina, that's my guy to actually call that out because it's pretty important around here. Like, people have died on this day.
It's so true. It's so true. May we never forget the true meaning behind Cinco de Mayo. I'm just proud of you for not drinking during the school day. I'm proud of you. That's impressive.
Big props. I'm sure that's where Adam is, though, celebrating Cinco de Mayo after he got done with his May the 4th be with you parties last night. Big couple days for him.
Dude, Marez is out of his mind. Has anyone talked to him?
Vaguely.
Do we know he's okay? I mean, like,
I think he's fine.
I spoke to him today.
Okay, good.
D-line, what do you think of Aaron Gordon's defense this season?
Man, like every aspect of Aaron Gordon's game is the same. It is started off great, got terrible in the middle. Actually, for his defense, it like just went down and down and down as the season went on. And what Dev said is exactly right. Like they were just like, well, we've got the lockdown defender. Go get Steph Curry. Like, go get Ja Morant, like these guys like Monte Morris can't stay in front of, and Aaron Gordon, who is lanky and rangy and big and can, like stick with these guards, is like just put in a situation where he can like stick with them, but like he can't lock them up. I mean, it's impossible. It's an impossible ask for somebody like that. Yes, watching him guard Kawhi Leonard was incredible. Watching him guard Luka Doncic was incredible. Like all of those players you called out, exactly. That's exactly who you want Aaron Gordon on. Like that, being able to guard that like abusive big three is like one of the most difficult asks in the NBA. It's like the most difficult defensive assignment, and somehow we have that no problem. But like just like general guard play, we are so weak with, which shouldn't be that difficult. Like there's a million quick little guards that, there's a lot of Shaq Harrisons in the world. There's very few Aaron Gordons. It's like frustrating that we're able to get like the easiest or that we're not able to address what should be the easiest type of defense But we have, and like Aaron Gordon, like Aaron Gordon is such a like bipolar player. Like
Yeah.
he's just I have like a really hard time just like universally praising or panning what he did. Because there are times where I'm like, oh man, dude, how do we get this dude? I cannot believe how badly we fleeced Orlando, gave them Gary Harris and God, I can't remember who else
RJ Hampton,
RJ,
your guy.
thank you. Sorry, RJ. I know you're watching. My apologies. It's Cinco de Mayo. My brain is not where it needs to be. But sometimes you're like, I can't believe we fleeced them that hard to get Aaron Gordon out of there. And other times you're like, what I wouldn't give for RJ Hampton. Oh my God.
I actually didn't say that once this season.
Yeah, I didn't say that either. RJ Hampton did not have a great sophomore campaign.
Yeah.
But like Aaron Gordon is just tricky, man. Aaron Gordon is like the actual, like he is. If you want to look at the Nuggets in this exact era, this year specifically, like Aaron Gordon is like the perfect poster child for that squad. It's like overachieving at sometimes, ultimately probably not as good as we need them to be, but like positive impact, can be a superstar sort of, but like in a superstar role player if that exists. And you just know that when I just hate, like I hate so much of the analysis that we have to do, because it's like, like how good is Harrison at being the producer and the host? Like he's good, but like it's better when we have the producer and the host here also, and then the show, like it
I can
sucks.
agree with that.
Yeah, right. Like it's tough. Like we don't have the squad, so we're just like, okay, Aaron Gordon was miscast. He did a pretty good job. He didn't do a great job. I'd like to see him get better. I think he can get better, but I'd like to see him actually play his role. I'm sure he would too.
Yeah, there's a debate going on in the comments right now. Was Aaron Gordon better than Jeremy Grant?
Dude,
I think he absolutely was. The only thing Jeremy Grant's better at than Aaron Gordon, I think, is three-point shooting. Aaron Gordon's a better defender. He is a better rebounder. People forget Jeremy Grant was a terrible rebounder in Denver.
There is so much like retrofitting of Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant was he was on the bench most of the season. We spent most of our time talking about how he was the most athletic player that didn't use his athleticism at all in his game. He got no rebounds. He wasn't shooting well. He was like not that big of a participant. He went into the bubble. He had like not even a good rounds. He had like a couple great games that we're left with, and then he went to Detroit where he exploded on an offensive level, which he never could have done here. But he wasn't that great for the Nuggets. Like we're looking back, we're like, oh, we could have had Jeremy Grant, but like we had Jeremy Grant, and he wasn't that helpful. He like was not that impactful as a Nugget.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you like said with Jeremy Grant is, or in bringing them both up, is one of them got to see what it looks like at full strength. Like he got to see Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Jokic. So like that was his role, and he was like 4th, 5th guy. Aaron Gordon has had to adapt. He does not know, what type of player he is for Denver right now. It's only been, we're talking about through the first 100 games. Jeremy Grant got a full season at full strength to see what his highs and lows was. And like we said, the only thing that was different was the 3-point shooting. But also that's what he was, and that's good for Jeremy Grant. That's what he focused on. That is not what Denver needs. Denver does not need a 3-point shooter in the same ways. They need a defender. They need a guy that's going to be able to lock a guy down, also play well alongside them. And also the most important piece is want to be in Denver. So like speaking about, Jeremy Grant in that way for this entire time that he hasn't been there, it's been very difficult because one guy wanted to be in Denver and he's still that's where he wants to do. And the other guy has moved on. So even speaking about it really does not do much for you because you can't change it. They didn't have the chance to bring him back and they moved on to a better situation.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say people are always also talking about his rebounding ability. You don't need rebounds on the Denver Nuggets. You have the most dominant rebounder in the NBA.
They have a center who just sucks up every single rebound.
Yeah, who cares? Who cares if you don't have dominant rebounders? Like Denver almost always wins the rebounding battle on Nikola Jokic's back alone. Like
Yeah, people don't remember how bad of a rebounder Jeremy Grant
He was
Like
terrible.
every single post game lounge, we talked about how bad of a rebounder Jeremy Grant was that season.
Just the refrain over and over is like, how is this the most athletic long guy we've ever seen that doesn't use any of those attributes? He just like shoots mid ranges. He doesn't like he barely dunks. It was confusing. I mean, I like Jeremy Grant, but I'm certainly not. I don't look in the rearview mirror like, oh man, what we could have had. Like,
I don't
to
either.
Me, Aaron Gordon is a much better complementary player for the Denver Nuggets.
I agree. I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago, Eric, talking about Aaron Gordon's defense and how he's better at guarding those big wings than those smaller guards. And I totally agree with you, but it's funny to go back 2 years ago when the Nuggets got Aaron Gordon, or a year and a half ago. They got Aaron Gordon thinking, oh, who do we really have to defend in the playoffs? The Lakers with LeBron James and the Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. It's funny how, like, a year and a half later, neither of those teams have. Well, the Clippers didn't have either of those guys in the playoffs last year, or this year, really. Paul George, like, a tiny bit in the play-in. And the Lakers made the playoffs last year, but were trash, and this year didn't even make the playoffs. So it's funny how that's just shifted from, like, oh, we got to worry about the LA teams and their big wings to these smaller guards, the John Morants of the world, the Devin Bookers of the world. It's just been interesting how that's shifted over the last 1.5 years.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of that is that, like I was saying, like a dominant three in this league is about the most rare thing that you can find. Like a LeBron James, like a Luka Doncic, like these really big bodied guys that play the game with power and finesse. It's more common for, at least I think. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's like more common to find like a Devin Booker type, not the quality of him, but just that style of player. Like a small, he is more traditional in that he is not nearly as big bodied as those guys, and so you don't have to worry about like the physicality of a Devin Booker. You have to worry about the range and the finesse and like being able to stick with him, being able to like fight through screens. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, those guys. And LeBron James is no longer probably the king of this league anymore. Like, you don't have to necessarily like plan your entire defense against a guy like that. Luka is like kind of working his way up, although I mean he's the one, right? Like he doesn't even play the three.
He's like the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, right. Kawhi is like another guy that's like probably somewhere in between Devin Booker and LeBron James, but it is why. I mean, it's funny. Like,
yeah, it's just interesting how just the whole conversation about who Denver needs to worry about in the West has shifted over the last year and a half. Here's some of Aaron Gordon's defensive highlights from this season. Not surprising, most of them took place early in the year. October 29th, the Nuggets beat the Mavs 106-75. Luka Doncic was limited to 16 points on 5 of 18 shooting. Aaron Gordon was doing most of the defense there. On the season, if you look at the matchup data on NBA.com, Luka shot 7 of 24 from the field when guarded by Aaron Gordon in 3 games. He really shut him down. And if you go back to when the Nuggets traded for Gordon, I had people with the Nuggets telling me they thought that Aaron Gordon was the best matchup for Luka in the entire league. So I don't think it's that surprising that he's been able to really shut him down like he has. Trae Young shot 9 of 22 versus Aaron Gordon in 2 games this season. Brandon Ingram shot 5 of 13 versus Gordon in 2 games. In the playoffs, Jordan Poole shot 4 of 14 with Gordon defending. And if you remember, that kind of shifted in game, I think 3 it was, when Aaron Gordon really started guarding Jordan Poole. He did get lit up by a lot of guys, Devin Booker, Bogdanovich, John Morant, Donovan Mitchell, but he did have some standout games. Dev, here's my question for you. How big of a priority in your mind is it for the Nuggets to go out and get another, I'm just going to say, clearly above average defender on the wing, or are you comfortable going into next season with Aaron Gordon as kind of your go-to fire extinguisher on the wing against, those opposing small forwards?
I am very, very confident in Aaron Gordon's ability to defend as many players as possible. But I definitely want them to go after another defender and to give him another option defensively. Where, even if you just talked about that um, defensive tree, like he guarding Jordan Poole, Trey Young, Luka, you just said guys that are playing different positions where he's having to adjust the type of defender that he is while also having to be an offensive guy as well. Like he's not able to just focus on playing basketball. He's having to be the lockdown guy. He has a lot more assignments than everyone else does have. He's having to study everybody's habits, and also he can't anchor all by himself. So now you have other guys, and that's what makes teams like the Bucks and the Mavericks so successful. While they have a really good defender, everyone else is bought in. The Heat, for instance, everyone else is where you can't have those type of switches, especially when you look at Jamal Murray coming back from an injury, who was not, a relatively great defender. Michael Porter Jr., who was not a relatively great defender. They're going to get attacked. Like people are going to go after them, and they're going to try to get them into pick and roll situations. And having another guy that you can just like throw out there and give him plays off, and also a switchable defender, that will go a long way. So um, when you have to sit there and think about like Gary Harris coming back, Shaquille Harrison coming back, and things like that, there are other people out there that you can get where you're not having to miss those guys every single time because you have another defensive option. Like Austin Rivers is probably going to come back to Denver, and is based off of how he defended in the second round. This is a
They
guy
need
that
him
everyone else.
because he's their only other, I think, like clearly above average defender on the wing.
Exactly. And you talk about the importance of, or Malone talked about the importance of winning a championship right now. The only way you can do that is if you have a defensive minded team, or a team that has a defensive identity as well, because you're going to be able to answer with scoring. So now having other people alongside Aaron Gordon is going to go a long way. So while I think that he's a great defender and it's great to have an anchor, a defensive anchor, you're going to need other guys around them. So go and get another defender. Go and change your team where the rotation has multiple guys that you could bring in, even if it's situational.
Yeah. I want to talk more about maybe a potential Gary Harris return. On the other side, we'll take a quick break, though, and then we'll get to that and Aaron Gordon's best game and best moment this season. Got to talk to you guys about the American Raptors, who play out at Infinity Park, though. If you haven't heard of the American Raptors, they're Rugby Town USA's newest rugby team. They are comprised of athletes who have competed at the highest levels of their respective sports. They come from backgrounds in football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, soccer, track, and field. They're all ridiculous athletes. They've teamed together on the American Raptors, the rugby team that plays out at Infinity Park. If you want to hit up a game, they're free, but you do have to grab a ticket. Head over to AmericanRaptors.com to grab that ticket. If you can't make the game, they stream all their games on AmericanRaptors.com. Also, check out the weekly DNVR Rugby podcast with Colton Strickler. He's got a total lock on all the rugby news, not just in Colorado, but throughout the whole country as well. So make sure to subscribe to that on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. All right, back here on the DNVR Nuggets podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. We got a comment about Gary Harris, D-Line. I got to ask you, what's your thoughts on a potential Gary Harris reunion? He's a free agent. He had a little bounce back of a season in Orlando. What do you think?
Wow, what do I think? Wow. Obviously the numbers matter. The years.
Let me read you his stats. Let me read you his stats from last season. 11 points per game, 2 rebounds, 2 assists in 28 minutes. He started like half the year. The most important stat, though, he shot 38.5% from 3. That's back up there with his, 2016, 2017 numbers.
See, this is the thing where like you don't you don't know how much sentimentality is involved with. It feels like a lot of sentimentality is involved when you're talking about whether or not it makes sense to bring back Gary Harris. Gary Harris is a good player. We love Gary Harris because he was You know, he was Mr. Nugget. He was ascending every year. He was the best player somehow for a few years, or a year, at least 1 year on the Denver Nuggets. Um, he's undersized. He is tenacious. He is unreliable when it comes to his shooting. But it would feel nice to get the band back together, would it not?
It would, but he's also a really good defender. You know,
He is a really good defender.
I think he instantly would be Denver's best point of attack defender. Like instantly, I think he's a better defender than Austin Rivers, who right now is like Denver's probably best point of attack defender. So I just think instantly he'd be an upgrade there.
Gary Harris flipped the Utah series for the Denver Nuggets. Donovan Mitchell was eating the Denver Nuggets alive. Gary Harris made his reemergence halfway through that series and completely changed the dynamic. And the Nuggets won the series because of it, because of his defensive tenacity on the court. I don't know. Is he the same guy? Like he really he fell off a cliff. He wasn't when it all sadly came to an end here in Denver, we weren't praising Gary Harris's defense. No. We weren't like sad that it was going. I mean, his shooting was abysmal.
It was definitely time to move on when the Nuggets moved on. But the thing is, if he came back here, he'd be kind of playing a similar role to the one he did play in the bubble, where they really just needed him for his defense and his spot up shooting. But then you can say he kind of knows the system. He knows how to play Jokic ball as well.
Do we know if he still wants to play NBA basketball?
He had a nice year. He had a nice bounce back year.
All right,
this was a bounce back year.
Just asking the question. Yeah. I'll do it. Mr. Nuggets, no problem. 3 Mr. Nuggets Gary, Bones, and Monte.
Some potential infighting in the locker room over the Mr. Nuggets.
Would there be more?
I could see that.
Would there be more Mr. Nuggets than not?
What do you think, Dev? What do you think?
I think that Gary Harris really plays Jokic style basketball. He like you said, he knows the system and things like that. But also, you have a draft pick. There's a lot of those type of players, especially that are young in the league, and also they're going to be healthy. Like Gary Harris, one of his biggest things was health when he was with the Nuggets, and that's what set him back a lot of the times. You could go get the same type of idea that they're young, they're trying to learn, they're picking up a lot of new things, but also you get them for a lot, cheaper and also longer. So I think that it would be great to bring back Gary Harris, but I think it makes more sense for you to just go young and to start it over and to just build a guy in the league that starts as a defender that has to learn the system and things like that. You're not going to need them for offense, especially with everybody coming back. You're going to need someone. You can do both, but also you have to now let him know he's going to only be a situational guy. It's hard to get a only situational guy that's been a veteran that's seen it all. He's had success in Denver. So it's going to be hard to say, hey, your time has passed. You're done. So I think that go young. I really do feel like you could bring a new guy in where it's not only a Shaq Harris, where it's not only a Austin Rivers. Those are the older guys that they brought in. Bring in a young guy that that's all he knows, that's all he's going to be, and he understands that.
Matthew brought up this point. Gary led the league in corner 3-point percentage. I just went and looked up his corner 3 percentage. I'm guessing it's true because get ready for this. Gary Harris just shot 47% from the corners this season in Orlando.
On volume? How much did he shoot?
46% of his 3-point attempts came from the corners, and on the season he shot 5 threes per game.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty great. That is a shocking
that's
one,
interesting.
Actually.
That's interesting right there.
Whoever brought that up, that's a good stat right there.
That's a great stat, Matthew. Here's my thoughts. I'd be all for a Gary Harris reunion as long as it doesn't cost the Nuggets that much money. His injury stuff definitely is still a concern, but I kind of think he'd be nice as a guy off the ball who just plays defense and shoots threes. Here's what I wonder if the Nuggets would think about, though. I think Gary Harris is a better defender than Austin Rivers. How much better of a defender, I think, is up for interpretation. Austin Rivers, maybe a slightly worse shooter, but like how much of a worse shooter, up for debate. I wonder if the Nuggets would go, we could have Austin Rivers for like a veteran's minimum. We could have Gary Harris for like $8 million. What would we rather have? What would be a better use of our resources?
What is the vet minimum these days? Do we know?
It's like almost 2 million, I think it'd be for Austin Rivers.
Oh, it's like a variable number based on like how long.
Yeah, it goes up and down based on how many years you've played. I just think that's the conversation the Nuggets would have there, because they do play the same position. Ideally, you want to get a wing, a 6'4" through 6'9" guy, not a 6'2" or 6'3" Gary Harris.
Yeah. This is funny because they're like the Nuggets are. They're just like they're bumping their heads against the tax this last season.
Yeah,
and like this next season, if they are true to their word, should be that it's championship or bust. Should be the season where they finally do bust into the tax for the first time in our lifetimes, as far as I know, and. So, my God, I don't know. Gary Harris.
Let's move on, because we've talked about Gary Harris for too long, and this is a show about Aaron Gordon, or was supposed to be about Aaron Gordon.
But quickly, Walter tax. Who cares? Like, what that does though is it starts the timer for owners. Because it's a multiplier. It's like you can't just stay in the tax forever. It like it gets to the point where it's like it essentially signifies that you are all in every way financially. Like, we've been building to the point where it's like, okay, the team is growing, it's growing, and like now, okay, we're going to go in the tax, we're going to spend money to get those like high end players that are around the fringe. We're going to pay for those as well. We're not just going to try and scrimp and save everywhere we can. So we'll see. If they could do, Gary Harris could easily replace Will Barton. We could easily also have Austin Rivers, and we have more than one dynamic defender to, not only for the long season that is the NBA season, but just for, situational things, to be able to always have a dynamic wing and guard defender on the court. We have to do that.
Yeah, I don't care about the Kroenkes' money. They should spend as much as
I don't care
Tim
either,
Conley wants them to spend. Yeah, we're just saying, like, this is what the conversation is like at Ball Arena.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Aaron Gordon, his best moment this season. I've got two for you guys. First, the game-winning 3 against the Clippers.
Of course. That's the number one.
That's
number one.
The first one that came to mind.
No question.
Yeah. And then in terms of another play that stood out from Aaron Gordon, how about that reverse alley-oop he had against the Timberwolves in April? Like, one of the best in-game dunks I've ever seen. That was freaking ridiculous. One of his 130 dunks this season.
That's a wild play. Like, really, he has some plays that it was just like, wow, like having a guy that can do that at any time. And also, I think that what was so important about that Clippers game is he just had success against that same team like a week prior, where he had 30 points and set his like season high. And then in this game, he backs it up and he has 28 points. He set a season high in minutes because it went into overtime. And then he seals the deal with the 3-point shot. I feel like this is where his confidence came back. It wasn't that he was playing like bad, but I feel like he was like questioning like what it was, like what's his purpose, or should he be an offensive guy or a defensive guy? And I feel like his 3-point shot finally came back, and he also had his moment in Denver where everybody's like, hey, you're one of us. So I think that had to be like his most important game, especially coming off of a loss to Utah right before that, which who loses to Utah?
Yeah, man. And then, it's being brought up in the chat. I was going to say the dust up with Russell Westbrook was incredible.
Yeah.
There's like big moments where he game winner, like thunderous dunk. And then there's like symbolic moments, which is not backing down in any way from Russell Westbrook, laughing at him.
Right.
Also,
actually laughing at him.
Great. And then also the same evolution that took place between he and Draymond Green, where he was being punked in the first couple games, and then his spine stiffened, and we saw like real resolve, and we saw actually he wasn't just taking punches, he was punching back. Like those two moments for me, like really, because that was kind of like having him. He's been here for a little bit. Sometimes you're like, man, AG's kind of soft sometimes. Like he kind of plays soft sometimes. Like he's like a big guy, but he doesn't.
When he takes those, like when he's fading away in the post against like Elfrid Payton. I don't know why I brought up Elfrid Payton, but just like an undersized guy where he clearly has a mismatch. You're like, dude, what the hell?
Yes, and he just had that moment, like no, like I'm not taking this anymore. So, I mean, I love those moments. For me, I mean, the game winner is obviously the best, no question.
Yeah.
But I love that he showed resolve, and he showed that like that Paul Millsap thing, that like no, you're not punking us kind of moment.
Yeah. His best game, I mean, he had a lot of really great games throughout the season, offensively and defensively. I've got to say, though, just when talking about his best game and kind of the Aaron Gordon story of the season, I got to go with Game 4 against the Warriors. I mean, to bounce back from what happened over the first 3 games of that series, where, like you said, Draymond Green just dominated that matchup and like really just sunned Aaron Gordon.
Oh yeah, calling him
for
pussy boy on the court.
Like, it's Vogt. He's back from watching the Rockies. How was the Rockies game?
Oh, they're winning. They're winning big.
Oh, they're winning. Exciting stuff. Vogt's actually, he's on the Rockies beat today. I don't know what bet he lost to have to do that, but but Aaron Gordon, Game 4 versus the Warriors, to bounce back from the first 3 games of that series where he looked terrible. 21 points. He got to the line 13 times, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and a win. He was pretty good in Game 3 as well, but the Game 4 win, I'm taking that as his best game of the season. That turnaround from Aaron Gordon, I mean, that showed me a lot. That just showed me a lot about the person and how tough he is as a player.
Yeah, and they also have their initiation moments where that's like what you're known for. You're supposed to be the tough guy. You had the Paul Millsap moment. You have a lot of JaMychal Green moments as the enforcer. DeMarcus Cousins is DeMarcus Cousins. So now you have Aaron Gordon who gets to bounce back not only against anyone but Draymond Green, who was pretty much kicking his ass in every single way and just is really out there trying to be that guy that's trying to test you. And for him to show, like, I'm not afraid, I'm going to bounce back, I'm going to respond. And also, Denver is not punks. Like, I feel like that's like a narrative that they've been trying to answer for a while. And he answered that and put those questions to bed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. D-Line, how excited are you for Aaron Gordon's season next year? Because we've talked about this a little bit, but he'll be sliding back into like that 4th option role where I think he's more comfortable, and I think that his game is better suited for. He was playing as that 2nd or 3rd option this year. Are you expecting like an even more efficient season from Aaron Gordon next year?
Yes, he came, dude. That beautiful 8 games that will only ever, that feels like it was a dream, a memory, an oasis in the desert. Like that was so perfect. And the Denver Nuggets worked like a well-oiled machine. Like we see the Suns look like sometimes, like we see the Warriors. There was an answer for every scenario that came up. It was Aaron Gordon slashing, dunking, Jamal Murray splashing threes, Michael Porter Jr. spacing the court, Jokic just directing traffic, Will Barton playing to the best of his ability, super complimentary. And that was like Aaron Gordon just arriving in town, like all of his shit still in a suitcase. Like he didn't know anything about the Nuggets. He just knew about basketball and like how to play it in general terms with Nikola Jokic. And now they know each other intimately. And like the thought of him being able to go back and being okay, like now I can just hang out. Like I don't need to hang out here and shoot the 3. I can hang out in the dunker spot. I can wait for a good opportunity because the court is so spaced to actually make a well-timed slash to the basket. I can, just focus on defense and not have to like wear myself out trying to get open for a shot. It's going to be incredible, man. I mean, we saw it. That's the thing. This isn't theory. Like this is just we need to get back to what we to science, what we saw with our eyes. Like the way we saw it all work together was perfect. It was a perfect combination of players.
So and I actually went back and looked at the stats from that run, what Aaron Gordon did, and he actually only played with Jamal Murray for 5 of those games because Jamal was in and out of the lineup, and then of course tore his ACL.
Yes.
Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray have only played 5 games together. Here's Aaron Gordon's averages in those games: 13.2 points on 64% shooting.
Yes, because
that's what I expect from that's what I expect from Aaron Gordon this season. Maybe lower on the points, but higher on the efficiency.
Yeah, and the best part about that is I'm sure that they went 5-0 in that time frame. Like he was a player that they brought him in to do a specific thing, and he did those type of things, especially as like the 4th option. So now in this year, he just picked up a lot more tools that he gets to use next year. So like the excitement level is extremely high because you have the ability to have this play that you get to run over and over. You also are now being able to not have to defend and use all of your energy on that end of the floor. You also get to open up your game in a lot of different ways and also be used as a slasher with a lot more spacing. Like just think about now Aaron Gordon gets to go one-on-one with guys the entire time, and also like as like just the throw up option where he's just dunking. He gets to be on the fast breaks where he's not the only one having to grab boards, because now you bring back Michael Porter Jr., who's a really good rebounder. You have guys that have to open up the floor in different ways. So the excitement level is like through the roof because we haven't actually got to see Aaron Gordon, but in only 5 games. Because everything else was him adapting on the fly, and he was still really good.
Yeah, they went 4-1 in those games, 4-1, and the one that they lost. I don't want to talk about it anymore, but it was that one in the Bay.
God damn it,
guys! Thank you so much for joining me today, Dev. Huge shout out, man! Thanks for using your lunch break to hop on a podcast. We really appreciate it. Hope you don't get fired, man.
I actually hope you do get fired.
Yeah, I see what's happening here, Eric. It's all part of your plan.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow here on the DNVR Nuggets podcast. Let me see if I can find the YouTube end screen. See, this is where I actually do miss Kale.
You do
the end
this,
of the show.
After you smack talk Kale, now look at
we gotta wrap it up.
out here.
Yeah, here it is. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.